everybody, welcome to our review for Damien Chazelle's Babylon. We're your hosts. I'm Vincent, a background designer for the Hollywood animation industry.
And I'm Janet, the ex-Disney artist turned independent creator, and make sure to touch all our bells and buttons. Infect the algorithm with our ridiculous content, please and thank you. And let's get straight into it.
Touch those bells and buttons, everybody. Babylon is about a cast of colorful, hopeful characters that enter the Hollywood system with big aspirations. Just like us, they each get their lucky break and discover how the fame machine treats them through the years. And they see Hollywood's magnificent side, but also their darker side. So, Janet Chan, what did you think about this movie?
I liked it a lot more than a lot of the movies we watched this holiday season, which was like Avatar, Puss in Boots. Of the movies that were released in December, I liked it a lot, comparatively. For this movie, I really liked it because of the theme of this movie. We went in thinking it's another Once Upon a Time in Hollywood type movie. The expectation the trailer set is that it's a sucking the dick of Hollywood movie.
Let's worship Hollywood.
Yes. This is actually the complete opposite of what that expectation is. Because of that, I was pleasantly surprised when I watched the movie that it's actually not that at all. I was kind of dreading sitting through however long this is, 2 hours, whatever, of just Hollywood patting themselves on the back.
And like the expectation that Chazelle did La La Land, which is exactly that.
Exactly. But the fact that this movie is not that at all, I was pleasantly surprised. Because I tend to like movies like this, like Boogie Nights, Network, those type of movies.
It's a satire.
Yes.
Surprise!
Surprise! It's obviously very relatable for specifically people like us. I understand the average person might not get a lot of jokes in this movie, which is fine. For us, though, having worked in it, having lived in LA, it's extremely relatable, which
cathartic sometimes.
Yeah, so I feel very seen.
Thank you, Chazelle.
Yes.
It seems as though a lot of the millennial directors are going through their fuck Hollywood phase.
Yes. We'll talk about what other movies this year kind of do the same thing, and what I guess I have predictions about where Hollywood, indie movies in particular, is going years from now, because Hollywood steals the idea of indie movie people and pretends it's their own years, probably 5 years later.
There's a pretty neat cast of characters here that include big names like Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie. How do you think they did?
I like the side characters, honestly, more than the big stars that you'd probably advertise to go see this movie. What did you think about them?
There is this standout performance by Jovan Adepo. I hope I pronounced that right. And he plays a jazz cat who eventually flirts with Hollywood. There's a scene with him compromising his dignity for Hollywood, and it's my favorite scene in the movie. It is gut-wrenching, but also too real for people who work in Hollywood who have relinquished their dignity for fame.
Yes. Did you like Margot Robbie?
Margot Robbie was great. She really flexed. She can go from psychotically happy to weeping to... She has a whole range of emotions that she turns on like a faucet, and it's really impressive to watch. She's pretty incredible. And the music is outstanding. And that's kind of like obvious for Chazelle, who did Whiplash, who did La La Land. He studied jazz growing up. So he has a huge affinity for this. So the music is incredible. And the attention to detail when it comes to like the music side and the Hollywood side is really, really deep and impressive.
Yes. I for one, I mean, this movie, acting-wise, I don't think it's going to get like any nominations for me. I think it is fine. It's no standout performances for me, but nothing distracting either. I think it needs to be what it is, acting wise. I like the set design a lot. It takes place in the late 20s, early 30s era of Hollywood. So basically, roaring 20s. It's really amazing how he was able to depict Hollywood in that era. With the costuming and then the set design.
The excess and the grand scale.
Shot on film.
We mentioned it's a satire. Like, what people are like, wait, what? What do you mean?
It has really sharp, odd observations of Hollywood people. He's trying to say something about that person and how they fit in the machine that is Hollywood, that is the film industry. Even if it's as small as a very, very minor extra in the movie to the main characters like Margot Robbie, Brad Pitt, Manny, Diego Calva. So I like it for that, but I'm sure because of the way the satire is written and told, a lot of this is going to go straight over a lot of people's heads, which is fine.
There's two problems with this movie. One, it's really difficult for the normies to relate, especially to these really privileged characters. Really, like, of course, like, it's hard to relate to them. But it's also difficult for the critics because they're clearly getting shit on by Chazelle.
Yes.
It's wonderful, though.
It's one of those movies where, like, if you enjoy the, oh, this is too real feeling, you will enjoy the movie. If you don't enjoy this is too real, or you don't get it, you don't relate to it, then you probably won't enjoy the movie. Was there anything you didn't like about the movie?
So the movie had me by the balls for about an hour and 25 minutes. It had me like I was riding an A, and I was really just enjoying the first act and a half. Basically kind of first two acts, but then as soon as a certain moment hits that kind of shuttles you into Act 3, I feel like Act 3 really loses all the energy and momentum it had from the first two acts. But there is an outstanding epilogue. I really love the epilogue for this movie. So that's what it is. I think it's a little like the third act makes it a little bloated and unfocused and kind of reiterates a point that I think after multiple viewings you would have understood eventually.
For me, what I disliked about the movie, the reason why, even as much as I like it for personal reasons, I can understand why a lot of people might not like it or might not understand it. It suffers from clarity, and even though I love the ambition of this movie, it's a very ambitious movie. It, like we talked about in the summary, it's a cast of characters are the protagonists rather than a singular protagonist, and for that reason it's trying to do a lot, and I'm not sure it's successful a lot of the times with its messaging, which is why I think I saw briefly some people did not give it glowing reviews, or are just confused, and I can understand it too. Like, if a movie only does well with a certain kind of audience, meaning like people who have worked in Hollywood, and it's not, the themes should be universal. The themes of like industry, essentially, work.
It's who you know.
Yeah,
type of things,
that type of stuff. There's aspects of that to like everyone's work, everyone's industry. So everyone should be able to relate in the same way when you watch Network, when you watch other similar type movies to this. It sells you on the emotion of it. This movie falls flat a little bit there for a lot of people. I can see that outside of my like, oh, this movie's great for me. So for that reason, let's go to the scoring.
Oh boy, Janet Chan, what do you give this movie?
I give it a B-.
Why do you give it a B-?
Because it does fall flat in the third act. And unfortunately, movies that have pretty good first, second act, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day sometimes. the third act can really like bring your movie down. It's in my grading system, overall B. If you're in the B territory, is a movie that I would probably watch again.
Probably recommend.
Yeah, probably recommend. But it's teetering on. It's a challenging movie. Let's just say that it's a challenging movie. In the way typically indie movies tend to be. You're not always going to have a good time, and that's kind of the point of the movie sometimes, like a lot of great movies.
It's not like La La Land where it's just sugar.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a blockbuster where like it's just sugar, rainbows, it's a roller coaster. It's not that.
There are parts of it that remind me of Requiem. It kind of makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
And if you don't like movies that make you feel bad, probably not one for you.
Yeah, so that's why and sometimes it just doesn't do what I know it's trying to set out to do. So it's like a B- in my opinion. What about you?
I give Babylon a B+. Like I said, it had me for like a good 2 acts there, and I was just riveted because anybody who loves Hollywood and Hollywood movies, this movie kind of gives you a nice concise history of that period from the late 20s and onward. Truly onward to the present, which is really neat. Where I have problems is the third act. There's an entire thing with our main character and some undesirables that I think could have been like taken out completely. And there are some, like, this is a very angsty movie, right? This is super shocking that this is coming from the same person who made La La Land, which is a let me get on my knees and fillet you for an Oscar movie. Yes. This is a fuck you movie.
Yes.
But it's a little too on the nose and a little too like I get how angry you are by like after like a couple hours, you know what I mean? So the third act suffers, and it's just like, I can't say it doesn't feel perfect. It doesn't feel like everything fits. I think there are scenes that you could take out to make it more concise. But at the end of the day, I did enjoy it a lot. I enjoyed the 2 acts and I enjoyed the epilogue. It's pretty. You got me there, I think. I think you really got me there. So B+. Good job, Damien Chazelle. I hope Paramount and everyone still give you a chance, because like it sucks that this movie is not being seen by people. And I understand though. This is a very kind of niche movie, but like I am very impressed that this is the same man who did La La Land and Whiplash.
Yeah, there's maturity.
There's a maturity to it. Yeah.
And he wrote and directed it, so.
And purpose immature, almost like purposely immature at certain parts.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's very like he's like a different person now.
I know.
Watching this movie. So we are now going. It was a big undertaking to do this, but we are now going to go beat for beat, act for act. Basically scrub through this movie with you so you can cathartically enjoy it, and we can poop on it wherever we wish. But we are about to talk major spoilers, so we'll see you in a bit. Do you feel like your career in the entertainment industry is going down the toilet? When I have these fears, you know what makes me feel like I have a few more years left in my shelf life? Coffee brand coffee. Coffee brand coffee gets me really excited to work for the Hollywood man and get on my knees every single morning.
If you would like 5% off your entire coffee and tea order, enter code honeyandabsinthe at checkout to get 5% off. Link down below.
Enjoy your coffee enema, baby. This review is made possible by New Masters Academy, the world's absolute #1 art school in the entire Hollywood system. Click the link down below for a free 7-day trial. Thank you, New Masters Academy. I am deep in the annals of your mind. I am deep in the annals of your...
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the spoiler section of our Babylon review. This is going to be a lot. We are going to go beat for beat and explain things in the way we see it. Honestly, this is how we talk about movies, casually. We're not nitpicking. I've seen some people think we're nitpicking, but we're not nitpicking.
No, we just take everything really critically.
Yes,
because
this is
we're
how
artists.
Hollywood people speak
Yeah.
about movies. That's it. So, first of all, let's talk about our expectations going into the movie, because we have to start with the right expectations for the type of movie whatever movie you're watching. So, what were your expectations?
From the trailer and from what we know of the director, it was kind of easy to assume that this would be another Once Upon a Time Fabelmans thing. Of let's celebrate the cinema, let's celebrate the people who make magic on screen. And seeing the trailers, I was like, okay, it's Chazelle doing La La Land, but this time a period piece about Hollywood. And I was really concerned, because that's not like, after watching the Fabelmans especially, I was a little like, oh man, I'm a little sick and tired of these worshiping the feet of Hollywood movies. So that was the expectation. Sure, there were some hints of like no, there weren't actually any hints in the trailer that it could have been a satire.
Yeah.
So I kind of took it for what it was, and I kind of kept my expectations for where it should be for Chazelle. We like him a lot.
Yeah.
He's a really brilliant dude. I expected Margot Robbie to flex and to have a good time with Brad Pitt being goofy. And that's about it.
Yeah. What about directing wise?
Directing wise, I expected Chazelle's thing is the whip hands. So he goes like, character, and like whip hands the camera. That's kind of his signature thing. I expected good music because the man knows his music.
I also thought it was going to be like a Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's funny to me that I remember Once Upon a Time in Hollywood got rave reviews from the critics. But I also remember audience reception was very lukewarm on that movie. And I understood why, too. Because it ended up being exactly what I thought it would be. A Tarantino film that just sucks the dick of Hollywood. I was like...
As he usually does.
Yes. So, because it was this movie was marketed as that kind of movie, I went in expecting that. Begrudgingly, because I would consider Chazelle and this movie to be an indie movie, especially when you compare it to something like Avatar or Black Panther.
The budget's $80 million.
Yes, in comparison, it's not nothing. For an indie movie, that's kind of a lot, but like, it's not supposed to be a sugar candy roller coaster ride, so I wasn't expecting that. Though I did, for whatever reason, I did not expect him to be like Whiplash like Damien Chazelle. I expected him to be like La La Land Damien Chazelle, because obviously that's what got him the accolades.
And let's not forget how tragically he got snubbed.
Yes.
For that Best Picture, I think.
Yes, and Best Director, everything.
I think did he get Best Director? At least he got one of them, but he got snubbed for either Best Director or Best Picture against Moonlight, and it was a whole debacle. They had to like change. Remember, they had to change the announcement midway.
Yeah,
which is,
they were like, they opened the envelope and was like,
God, I'll never
La La Land. Just kidding. Moonlight.
I'll never forget how Chazelle looked. He like he just didn't look happy, man.
No one would.
Yeah.
How do you mess that up? And then there was a whole like explanation after the fact of how they could have possibly messed up the envelopes and stuff.
Truthfully, though, I think Moonlight's a better movie than La La Land.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Just tighter.
I didn't agree until I rewatched La La Land, and I was like, oh yeah.
I knew. Remember when we walked out of La La Land? You were like over the moon, and then you were like, "What did you think, babe?" And I was like, "That movie's not that good."
I have a soft spot for musicals, but then when I rewatched
I do too.
I understood.
The movie falls flat
on
its face as soon as they fall in love and kiss. Like, I don't care anymore after that.
So that's our basic expectations. So let's start with Act 1.
So we open in Bel Air, California in the 1920s. 1926, I want to say?
I think
something like that.
We are basically on the beautiful landscape of Bel Air. And then we pans down to Manny. Manny is the first protagonist. So in this movie, we're going to have several protagonists. And this act structure is not the typical act structure where you have hero's journey, you have the main protagonist and a main villain, and they defeat the villain at the end happily ever after. It's not going to be that, like most indie movies. We will have several main protagonists. So one of our protagonists, Manny, he is a Latin American grunt in Hollywood, essentially.
Yeah, he's from Madrid, but everyone calls him the Mexican, basically.
Yes.
Which is very Hollywood.
Of the era. So he is in charge of bringing this elephant to this grand Hollywood party. The main reason why you're seeing this scene is because Manny has a hard time getting the elephant on a truck up a hill to, I assume, the Hollywood Hills. Some mansion in the Hollywood Hills. And the elephant, as they're trying to like push it up at the hill, the elephant, literally you see its butthole
open up
and shit come out and splash on Manny, the other person, and essentially you, the audience, because it gets on the lens of the camera. And this is when I realized, oh, so this is the type of movie I'm in for. Because if you know anything about Chazelle, I was like, oh, this is odd. You're being irreverent.
Yeah.
And you're literally taking a big fat shit on us. And as metaphorically, the grunt in Hollywood is getting a big fat shit being taken on him, and that's just his job. I thought, whether it is in poor taste or not, I laughed.
I laughed, and I was like, I thought like, oh, this is something different.
Yes.
We're in a different era of Chazelle's career.
Yes.
But we'll talk about that in the end of Act 1 part, so continue.
So in order to get to the party, Manny basically has to bribe everyone in LA, let's just say it, LA.
From cops to truck drivers.
And the way he bribes them is by saying, I'll get you into the party with these big Hollywood types if you will help me get to, like, waive ticketing, waive permits, whatever. Just do what you gotta do to get me to this party. Which, for basically second joke of the movie, it's like, yeah, that's very LA to like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do whatever you want, just get me into the party.
Oh, the town's about reciprocity.
Yes. So when they get to the party, this is kind of where you get introduced to almost every single one of the main characters, the players in this story. So you meet Brad Pitt's character, Jack Conrad. He is basically the big Hollywood movie star of the time. He plays that kind of character. So when he comes into the party, everyone is basically kissing the ring. Everyone's like, "Oh, Jack!" Like just singing him praises, trying to like get a picture with him, all this stuff.
And he's like somewhere between Cary Grant and Laurence Olivier. Just very like,
yes.
Oh my God, you are the prince, basically.
Yes, of right now.
Yeah.
You meet Eloise, which is basically the Hollywood gossip columnist / PR person. She has
the progenitor of the Hollywood Reporter and Variety.
Exactly, yes. You meet Margot Robbie's character. Her name is Nellie. She is, when she arrives to the party, she's basically a, what do you call it?
Hollywood hopeful?
Yes. She's an actress that's basically moved from nowhere.
A tale as old as time.
And wanting to be a star.
Yeah.
And she tries to get into the party. Manny basically lies for her to get her in because he just thinks she's interesting. She's an interesting character. But she's a wannabe actress, essentially, trying to get into the party.
And then there is Sydney, who is the jazz cat. He is playing this big old jazz band in the center of the stage. and he always busts his bandmates' balls for not being him, basically. But he is also a protagonist that we follow throughout this story.
Yes, he's basically just kind of like entertainment for the Hollywood parties for a really long time.
But this is a job for him.
Yes. There's Faye, who is a Chinese actress. She is kind of like Brad Pitt's character, except like most minorities of the time, you're kind of like relegated to you're the Chinese actress.
It's like she's liked because she's exotic.
Exactly.
For the time,
yeah. That's about it. There's some characters we'll mention later that arrive in Act 3 that are semi-important, but this is like the main big cast of characters that you're meant to follow their journey through time, through their careers in Hollywood, essentially. So at this party, you are taken through the different levels of the party.
Yeah, so there's a lot of debauchery going on. There's a wealthy man who's banging some young
actress yeah.
who takes a piss on him, which is very like shocking to other people, but kind of that's I imagine that happens all the time in Hollywood.
Yes.
And just naked people dancing. It's almost like that scene in Matrix 2 where they're having a big old like sweaty, grody party.
Yes.
And it's just a lot of you and like the music is pumping and everyone's dancing. Margot Robbie has this amazing like sort of dance number scene. And the point of it just seems to be like these are a bunch of debaucherous assholes who have a good time, who are having a good time.
This is what a big, grand, roaring 20s party, honestly not very different from now, kind of party in Hollywood. What it is drugs, sex,
hedonism.
Yes, Hollywood blowhards being Hollywood blowhards. I think Brad Pitt at the end is like fucking someone in the shadows. So all of this culminates. You learn about all these characters as the party goes on, but it culminates to this very eyes wide shut scene at like the top private level of the party where some, I assume, executive person is in trouble because the young actress who was giving him a golden shower has OD'd and died. So all the like producers come in and like,
oh shit,
great,
we lost another one.
Fantastic. And then, like that, like not bothered by it. And then they go back down to like to look at the party, and completely on accident, pure luck, Margot Robbie just happens to be dancing high on coke in the corner, and she's kind of like everyone's watching her. She has that star power, right? But not that much. It's not that dramatic. But they're like, just have her take her role for tomorrow.
Right. But before this, we forgot to mention that there's a scene where Manny goes to the coke room, the drug room with Margot Robbie,
yes.
And they both share basically their wants for the movie.
Their aspirations. So Margot Robbie basically is like, it's this thing Hollywood people like to say these days, especially, not I want to be a star. It's I am a star. They just have to notice me. They just have to give me a chance. So that's Margot Robbie.
Manny wants to be a part of the movies. He's been enamored by it, and he has no idea how the whole thing works, but he knows he wants to be a part of it. And essentially both of them, it's kind of suggested that like they kind of want immortality. They kind of want stardom to make their lives, their very mundane lives, meaningful. Which is, nothing has changed, between then and now.
So it's this very idealistic, hopeful story of anyone, whether you're like a PA in Hollywood to an aspiring actress or whatever. You see like, okay, so here are the characters. Some people who are like veterans in the industry, people who are nobodies in the industry, and you see minorities. How are they going to fit into the Hollywood machine as this story unfolds? So Margot Robbie essentially gets her big break. Pure luck, pure accident, not by talent, not by anything.
Which is still, to this day, how people get their big break.
Exactly. To
assume it has anything to do with talent and not nepo babies is delusional. Everything about Hollywood is luck and who you know, man.
Right timing, all that stuff. And I could see as that was playing out, because as the party was ending, Margot Robbie's character Nellie and Manny have like this kind of like quick goodbye of like, oh, we met this crazy night, this crazy party. Margot Robbie has this big break essentially and goes like, wow, you come into LA one day, you come out a star. It's supposed to be ironic, it's supposed to be funny. And Manny is kind of stuck in still the grunt position. Basically, Sydney, the musician, he goes home, basically another hard working day working a party.
So does Faye. She goes back home to her family.
Essentially.
And essentially it's to point out how, like, even though these people seem larger than life in this party, they are just normal people. Yeah. But there is this amazing sequence where, like, Margot Robbie just gets hired and the camera dollies into this beautiful expanse of what is supposedly Bel Air at the time. Is it golden hour? I think it is golden hour. Or no, it's in the morning.
Dusk.
It's dusk. Yeah. That's right. It's dusk. And then Margot tells Manny that I made it. I'm going to go to set tomorrow. And Manny is like, I love you.
Basically, yeah. Manny basically becomes a PA. Completely accidentally, because everything in Hollywood is accident. He gets hired essentially to take Jack Conrad, Brad Pitt's character, home to his mansion. Because he's like just knocked out, drunk completely. So Manny takes him home, makes a good impression by literally not saying anything. By literally allowing,
just doing his job.
Yeah. Allowing Brad Pitt's character Jack to just kind of like rant. And that's kind of where you learn about Jack's want. This veteran actor, he is like in the prime of his career. He's looking to forward, innovate Hollywood movies. He's looking for the next big thing. And in his mind, because this is the late 20s, he's looking at German movies and he's like, Bauhaus movement.
That's what we need.
That's what we need. So he passes out. He needs to be on set, essentially. The same set that Margot Robbie is going to show up in a few hours. And he's like, I like you, Manny. I'm going to take you with me to set, essentially.
And suddenly Manny's dreams come true.
Yes.
Just like that.
He becomes a PA. It's still really hard work. Manny doesn't really get what he wants for a really long time, but he kind of essentially enters the Hollywood system. He doesn't have to like bribe police officers to be like, can you just please help me out and get shit on by elephants. So in a few hours, Jack wakes up and Manny, Jack together arrive on to the Hollywood set.
And parallel wise, so does Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie enters this crazy vaudevillian multi-tiered set where different movies, different shorts are being shot all at once with like fake backdrops and props in the foreground, but it's like, you know, some strange cooking show and then some strange Three Stooges thing and then some strange like some sort of like what you call it, stunt thing. And there are multiple movies being shot, and Margot has her lucky break with this with this female director, and she needs basically this how do you say it, this pinup type 1920s sultry character.
Yeah.
But parallel wise, we have Manny and Brad Pitt arrive to their section of the set, and it's revealed that Brad Pitt's a part of this grand Ben-Hur big war movie,
Spartacus movie.
Yeah. Where they in Hollywood, I want to believe this is true because this sounds like totally how Hollywood do it back they would do it back then.
It was a circus.
It was a circus, but they basically took all the crackheads from Skid Row to be the extras in the story, and the producers and everyone behind the set don't really give a shit if they actually stab each other or hurt each other.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like unreal when you think about it, and like, you know, there will be lawsuits up the ass
Yes.
if something like that. Look at what's his name? Boss Baby. What's his name?
Oh, Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin. Yeah, look at those.
Yes, in today's age.
But it's amazing, and I want, like, this must be true, that, like, they didn't mind. They didn't mind if crackheads got killed or whatever. And then in the tent, or, you know, in modern times it would be the trailer, Brad Pitt is getting fucked up beyond belief.
Yes,
and Manny
drinking.
is just, like, witnessing everything, but also being awestruck by the entire process of, like, there's this fucking European director that is such a stereotype of a European director that that was great. I really love that stuff.
There are a lot of Hollywood laborer, like from everything from like the grips, like people who have worked in Hollywood all understand the jokes, the little inside jokes of, like,
even though it's the wrong era, there's like this Chinese looking man behind the camera for Margot Robbie set, and it's just like Jimmy Wong Hao.
Yes.
I mean, even though he worked in the 50s, 60s, like, you're like, come on, 1920s.
Yeah.
Give me a break, as if that would happen.
Chinese cinematographer, no way. But
who is the Chinese cinematographer? I know what you're trying to connote here.
Yes. And obviously a female director of that time, no, would not happen. But I appreciate the choice to make Margot Robbie's director female, because the introduction of when Margot gets on set, the director essentially is like, "What's this? I asked for tits," and and then they're like, "She died," and then she's like, "Who's this?" Like, the person that we could get for you, and then she's like, "Fine."
Which would be super misogynistic if it were a man. I kind of wish it was, for realism's sake, but, like, I understand, probably turn off a lot of people.
I appreciate it, because as holier than thou as Hollywood would like you to believe, the men and women of Hollywood behave exactly the same. So all this bullshit about misogyny, the women do it too.
Especially.
It's just the job. Yeah. It is what it is. So Margot Robbie basically has very low expectations of her, and she's not really required to do much other than to be like the pinup of the scene. But then when she gets on set, she absolutely kills it, and the director starts recognizing talent. Margot basically shows up the actress of the scene, and she makes a huge impression by being able to cry on cue, by being really flirtatious, being like the sex symbol of the time. Basically, she eventually is coined as the Wild One. Meanwhile, Manny's first task as PA is to wrangle these crackheads, these hundreds of crackheads, because they're not being treated fairly, union bullshit, whatever, and they want to kill him. But his job is to make them comply so that they can film the Spartacus Not Spartacus movie.
So the producers and Brad Pitt hear a big ol' hubbub down on set, and it's Manny on a horse firing a gun, like herding sheep. Yeah. and all the crackheads are like, okay, we'll do the thing.
So they're impressed by Manny's ganas as a PA to wrangle it. So that leads them basically to his second job. They have like
first set up why he gets the second job. It's hilarious.
During this big war fight sequence, a camera gets knocked over and destroyed, and then the DP and the directors are like, "Oh no, that's the 10th one. We don't have any more cameras. Manny, I need you to go get to the rental place and get us another camera." And so it's just like, that's exactly how wasteful Hollywood tends to be. It's exactly like just how ridiculous it is that, like, yes, they go through 10 cameras. That is a thing, and then the PA has to do the dirty work of like rushing over, and they're like, "Oh no, we're losing the light."
So Manny is tasked to get another camera from the rental place. So he drives and goes to this place and then asks them for, as best to his knowledge, the specific camera. But then the very, very pretentious people behind the counter go, is it version, basically, I don't know exactly the model, but is it version 1 or version 2? And Manny is like, wait, what's the difference? And then they go through this like, look at this idiot. He doesn't know the difference between version 1 and 2. Now, how realistic is that?
It's so realistic. I can't tell you how many times I've been to like Sammy's Camera or the rental section of
our own school.
Our school. Or even to develop Super 8 film at Pro 8.
The only place.
The only place. The place to get film developed, from everything from music videos to like 60mm Hollywood films. That is how the techies act. It was just so painfully like
accurate.
Yes. Yes. Like when I try to buy a tripod, when I try to buy a lens, when I try to like buy film, I'm trying to like pick the difference between like Fujifilm and like Portra, and then you ask, and they go, like,
this idiot doesn't know the difference between Fujifilm and Portra.
And I'm just like, yes, this is so painfully accurate, but like no one, unless you've worked and lived in LA and interacted with these people, will ever know how painfully accurate this is. And then the like, oh yeah, yeah, the only one is coming back in like an hour, but then he waits.
No, he waits like 2 hours?
Yes.
He said 30 minutes, and he like waits an hour. And then meanwhile, on set, the European director is going, fuck, we are losing the light, fuck. Oh, I laugh so hard, man. Oh my god.
Because we also understand the stress of like
shooting on film and losing the light. It sucks. And because the beauty of being a filmmaker is like there's so much that's not in your control.
Yes.
And that's like the fun part.
Yeah.
It's like a gamble, but then like when you get fucked by the light, it's like, oh man. So they're waiting on Manny, and Manny knows, like everyone is like chilling. All the crackheads are like chilling. Yeah. All the producers and Brad Pitt are just chilling, literally waiting for Manny, and Manny's looking at the clock going like, fuck, I need to get this camera. And as soon as someone like is like returning the camera that he's looking for, he grabs it, and then the person behind the counter is like, hey man, you have like 8 pages of paperwork to do. And Manny totally ignores him because so many people are counting on him. He finds a ambulance, takes that ambulance, turns on the siren, and bolts it back to set.
Which again is like an exaggeration, but is basically trying to explain the lengths Manny, the PA, is willing to go through
to prove himself.
To prove himself, yeah. So he goes there. Basically, it's like everything is like Hollywood magic. He makes it there right on golden hour.
So epic.
And then the director's like freaking out. It's like F-bombs everywhere, and it's like, everyone get into like,
everyone get back to their fucking positions. So they get back into their positions, but the problem is they have to wait for the star to come out, which is Brad Pitt. So Brad Pitt the whole time getting coked out, drugged out, drunk, out of his mind, like most actors. And like he like stumbles out of his tent and then walks up to
he's a mess. Yeah.
He's a mess, and he walks up to basically up the hill where the shot is being set up, and he acts against this beautiful lady. And it's one of those like, oh yeah, it's the final moment and we love each other, whatever, that type of sappy moment. But like the whole point of it is like, it doesn't matter what you're doing before the camera rolls. The point is what the camera captures. Doesn't matter how many drugs you're doing. Doesn't matter what sexual acts you're doing behind the scenes. All that matters is if you get the fucking shot.
Yes.
And they got the fucking shot. And it looks like Brad Pitt's not on coke. It looks like Brad Pitt's perfectly sober.
Like he's capable of just turning it on. Like drunk, about to throw up, whatever. Yeah. He's like, the minute they yell action, he like just turns it on. And then basically the end of the day, Margot Robbie impresses everyone. Manny is kind of thanked by the director, going like, oh, we got the shot, it was amazing, and my whole production was saved because of Manny.
They all really go gaga over this like last final shot with Golden Hour, and they're like, I think the director tears up or something. Oh my god.
So this entire scene, it's just like a little snippet of Hollywood history, which is fun for film buffs, to see how these silent films at the time were made, just in this crazy just circus of a production.
And there weren't any ethics.
No. It's to show jokingly, like, you know, the different roles each person plays, but ultimately for the story that this is like peak the 1920s for Hollywood. Like, everyone's in their prime. I mean, they got this. This is like a well-oiled machine. Everyone kind of knows their job, knows their place. It's very obvious for Manny how to impress. It's obvious for Margot Robbie how to impress, and Brad Pitt is just like that character. Jack Conrad is like in the prime of his career. That's the point of that scene, to set like, okay, everyone got their big break basically, and they're doing their jobs. So once the production is wrapped, obviously what comes next in Hollywood is a giant old rap party. So essentially Nellie is basically being painted as the next it girl. She gets the label the wild child here. There's this funny joke with basically the executive producer, who is played by that friend in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah. And Flea.
Yes. And they don't talk about Nellie like they respect her. They talk about her like, yeah, she's gonna be the next it girl. Like, they're gonna use her like an asset. That's how Hollywood is. And then this is where you learn about Jack and his friend George, who is basically an executive producer that he works with and has worked with since the early days of his career. But it's also when Jack learns about sound pictures. That's the next thing he's been looking for. It's not German expressionism. It's sound pictures are coming to Hollywood. Manny is working the party basically as like just a helper, essentially. Sydney is again a musician at the party. He's just entertainment, essentially.
Still busting his bandmates' balls.
Yes. I think at the end of the party, he, like Margot Robbie in the first initial party of the movie, he gets a big break, also completely by accident. Some producer drunkenly stumbles into him, gives him his card, and was like, I think we need some musicians for these movies that we're going to be producing soon. So now Sydney has his big break to become a studio musician, essentially.
It's a big step up from just being the guy who's just entertaining people at parties.
Right. Yeah, everyone is fully into Hollywood now. What do you think about?
I was riveted. I have no notes. I have no problems with Act 1. I think it's a great act. And as soon as Manny and Margot Robbie get onto set, that's when I was just awestruck because of how realistic a Hollywood set is. It's sloppy. It's ridiculous. People are yelling at each other to meet their marks and all this stuff. And the chaos of how they used to do it, where like they would have multiple sets all at once and then have different cameras, but then how things haven't changed, like Brad Pitt getting fucked up in his trailer basically and then shooting the scene, and it's great for some strange reason.
I liked Act 1 a lot too. One glaring thing that it didn't bother me, but because I kind of understood it, was that the characters are super unrelatable to the average person. I understand the point of Margot Robbie, for example, falling into her big break, because that is literally how it happens in Hollywood. But to the average person who might not know that, it might seem like, oh, that's too easy. Like, a normal protagonist has to like
work for it,
yeah, but like,
you don't work for it.
No, technically the inciting incident for her storyline, at least, is just being able to show up at a party, be at the right place at the right time, and then land a role for no good reason. The working for it is actually her proving herself in Hollywood. That's different. But actually getting your first big break, a lot of times is luck. And I felt that way about a lot of the characters. Like, why should I care? Why should the average person care? It's just a bunch of Hollywood blowhards being Hollywood blowhards. So, but I understand because I know what, like, the purpose of the story. So it's not really a complaint, just I wonder, because we haven't actually watched or read anyone else's review on this movie, but I wonder if a lot of people are mistaking, or a lot of these things are like going over their head simply because how would the average person know that about Hollywood? Like, it's a joke specifically for us. But other than that, this act was really, really strong. I wasn't bored. I was thoroughly entertained. I was laughing.
And then, like, I suddenly, like, you know, throughout the different beats of the movie, like, it really solidifies itself as a satire. And I just kept thinking Boogie Nights. Like, this is so Boogie Nights. But the problem is, like, you know, Chazelle designed this movie to be about Hollywood, but the beauty of Boogie Nights is that all the normies can just enjoy the surface movie of the adult industry, but then all the people in the industry in Hollywood understand the subtext of, like, this isn't really about adults, adults in the adult industry. This is about fame. It's about fame and fortune.
And ego and all that stuff. So because it's so literal in this movie, it actually puts the normal audience member at a distance. Okay, let's go into Act 2 since it seems like we loved Act 1.
Nothing really. It's great. It's fun.
Act 2 is essentially everyone's downfall because of the innovation of sound into Hollywood pictures. So everyone's struggling to adapt to, instead of silent movies, it's now like there's orchestras and there's sound effects and there's people's voices and stuff. So Nellie struggles with acting on set. Everyone actually does in that scene. Nellie is basically, she needs to come into this set there because sound is sensitive. Everyone has, instead of on a giant field, it's this very controlled environment in a soundstage. Nellie has to come in, walk to her mark, say her line, and then like basically do well.
You think it's that simple, but they go through great lengths to tell us it's not that simple. And it's not like everyone knows exactly what they're doing. This is kind of new for everyone. So for the director to work with a sound engineer up there, this, like, it sucks because the director wants to be the director, but the sound engineer is like, oh, you're too loud. Oh, you peaked. Oh, you're too low. Oh, and then it really frustrates both Margot Robbie and everyone to no end. And there's the cameraman inside the camera booth, and it's very hot. It's just obvious that's very hot. So he keeps coming out of the booth going like, I'm dying in here. And then the producers just shut him back and go, shut the fuck up and shoot the movie. And Margot Robbie is really starting to panic because now we are really understanding that, like, she's out of her element. She understands the more vaudevillian way of movie making, but this is completely different. And she's sweating all over her notes. And after like the 20th take, by the grace of God, and there's nobody opening the door, exposing light, they finally nail it.
Right.
Problem is, the camera guy dies. But no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
Who gives a shit?
The price we pay to
the
get
price
the
we
shot.
pay for art. He will be remembered in the credits.
Yes. The scene is this long, drawn-out scene. It's to highlight the frustration of adopting a new way of making movies for everyone, from the director to the sound techie to the actors and whatever, and how frustrating it can be on set. It's something I've definitely felt before. And you're supposed to, as an audience member, when you're watching this scene, to feel the frustration with everyone. In my opinion, the scene's a little long, but it's supposed to be long and arduous and annoying, because that's exactly how it feels on set.
I enjoyed the scene a lot. because it's just so painful.
Yeah. So then like the executive producer walks in and they're like, oh shit, the pressure's on now, but we don't know what we're doing. And then
meanwhile, Manny is on this other set with Noah's Ark in the background and like them a troupe of people singing "Sing in the Rain."
Yes. Jack's the talent.
Jack's the talent, I think, right? And then Manny's just looking at this production going like, And then Sydney is playing trumpet. He's the soloist for the musical number. And I think he goes for hors d'oeuvres, just takes a break. Yeah. And then he and Manny kind of, hook up, and Manny's like, what do you think about all this? And then Sydney's like, man, I think you have the cameras pointed at the wrong people. And then Chazelle does this awesome thing of like looking at the ridiculous, overproduced, expensive set and then panning towards just truly the most talented people on set, which are the musicians.
Right.
And a big close-up of Sydney with this amazing trumpet solo.
Yeah. Jack as basically the person who's supposed to be in this choir-like musical set, essentially, doing a goofy little dance and singing a goofy little song, Singing in the Rain. And Jack basically is like, this is ridiculous, this is stupid. He thinks he's above this. He doesn't think much of sound, essentially. That's what that scene is about. And basically cut to, as Manny's looking at Sydney becomes like the big talent of Manny's production. So we flash forward in time, essentially, and Manny like
co-producer, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So he co-produces this thing with Sydney. He basically makes a music video or a sound film. But it's Sydney being awesome, basically.
Yes, playing the trumpet, being the star.
Yeah.
Manny now from the lowly grunt to PA to now basically producer, who's like climbing really quickly. He's like,
how quickly they grow,
getting noticed. Sydney being basically, I think they mentioned in the film, like the first black talent, the first black star of movies. His name is Sydney. His last name is Palmer, Sydney Palmer. This references basically Sidney Poitier in film history. And it's really fascinating because what ends up happening later in the story.
We'll talk about that in the post-act 2.
But basically, Sydney basically represents this other really prominent black actor.
I'd say the prominent black actor of the day.
Of the time, yeah. That paved the way for people like Denzel.
Sure,
and so basically Manny is like on a fast track to being like a head honcho, essentially. He's basically poached by a competing fake studio, Kinescope. I think he's like at MGM or something, and then he's poached by Kinescope. Basically, they say that times are changing. Nellie, you have a history with Nellie, right? The big famous Wild One actress back in the day. And then Manny's like, yeah, what's wrong? And then he's like, well, we have a problem with her. People don't like her. They don't like her voice. She sounds uncouth. Like she sounds like she has a New Jersey accent. And of the times, for whatever reason, people become really modest, really prudish, and they don't like it. They find her annoying. And they don't like her like sex bomb, sex symbol image. She seems very vulgar for today's audiences. But also, you're a young and upcoming producer. We want you to basically be the James Gunn and reinvent our studio from the ground up, from not only this actress, but like pave the way for our next slate of movies. Which don't we know that happens all the time. You find someone who does something successful a few times and then they get poached to like man a studio, essentially. Manny shows up to the new studio and he pitches the new slate of movies and also a new image for Nellie. She is going to reinvent herself and turn herself into a classy lady. We're gonna give her like vocal training. We're gonna like give her a whole new image. Manny and Nellie reunite for the first time in a while. They have like small little moments in time throughout their careers where Manny's slowly working hard to catch up to her, and Nellie is just a star all of a sudden, essentially. But here, the tables have turned. Manny now is like basically big executive producer, and Nellie is like
washed up actress, basically.
Essentially, yeah, with gambling debt, gambling problem, drug problem,
addiction, yeah.
all this problem in her life, and Nellie has to kind of behave in like a subservient way almost towards Manny, and it's just weird. It's just, the dynamic is weird.
She likes Manny, so
yes.
she goes along for it, but it's a test for her to be demure.
Yes.
It's very hard.
Yes.
For her.
So the main scene after all this power shift where Manny's climbing up now,
they basically go to a J. Paul Getty party.
Yes, essentially. At
where
like
a
Hearst
bunch
Castle or
of
something.
well-to-dos who are completely unrelatable are judging everybody and smelling their own farts.
Yes, they're very hoity-toity. There's a woman that looks like Zelda Fitzgerald. There's like, it's a different crowd now that Hollywood is associating with. I'm assuming politicians, media people, big, high-powered people now. Sydney is there being essentially the token black person. Unfortunately, everyone is tokenizing him, and he just seems like a fish out of water. He's like, no one understands me, even though I'm like a high roller now, I have like nice cars and
Deep
nice
down,
planes.
I'm still a jazz cat. I don't want to hang out with these well-to-dos who like are basically feigning interest in me just because I'm black.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And like kind of like in a weird way looking down on me because of that too.
Yeah. But then fetishizing me at the same time.
Yeah, it's just weird.
You know? But still, nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
It's the same shit.
And then Nellie is basically being coached by Eloise, the like PR gossip columnist of Hollywood, essentially, of like how to be a lady, and she's struggling so hard. There's this joke of like, if you don't have anything to say something in French to sound, I don't know, classy. So she's just drowning out there. She's just like, she doesn't fit in. They don't like her. They can sense the like not of high class background that she comes from.
She tries her best to hold this demure accent, but then the Joyzy in her and shows up. Yeah. And these well-to-dos don't like that. Oh, is she a commoner? You can't have a commoner in here.
Oh, or like just like looking down on the image she used to have, especially. So Manny tries his best to comfort her because he's kind of like, you're my investment now. Like, you got this. I believe in you. Like, you're an actress. Just act. So she's just having a bad time. Meanwhile, Jack, this whole time, is having a hard time slowly dealing with the fact that he is no longer the big star of Hollywood. But he doesn't really realize it yet. Like, people are making like off-colored passive-aggressive remarks to him, and he's like,
yo, what the fuck,
what is going on here?
Yeah.
You used to like kiss my feet and stuff like that. So he's realizing like something's not right here, but I don't really understand. And then this all culminates to this epic Margot, Robbie, Nellie like freak out where like she just can't do it anymore. She's wearing, this is amazing, she's wearing this powder light blue dress, and everyone's in this very almost like Versailles French, that color, that pastel color palette.
The gag is she's basically almost naked throughout her entire career, and now she's all like covered up in demure.
Yeah, and but like she goes to the food section, and then she has this giant Ricky Gervais freak out of how like, this is a joke, you guys are jokes, this is like, you don't like me, and you guys are in fact you guys are worse than me, the shit that you guys do in private, suddenly, but like I'm the disgusting one. Yeah, so then she like stuffs her face with like red, so like the icy blue with the red, it looks very like crazy. And it's
Like she's eating them or
yes,
something.
essentially. She just has this amazing Janet-esque freak out. I'm just like, this is a fucking joke. And then she storms off and people are just like,
Oh my word.
oh my god.
And then she walks out, but then she feels like some vomit coming in because she ate a little too fast, did too many drugs, and drank too much. But instead of throwing up outside, she makes extra sure to go back to the foyer and throw up there.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like, fuck yeah, man,
Yeah.
gangster, let's go. And then makes everybody want to throw up. It's just a big, bad scene. You know,
Right.
for everyone.
There is...
This is like a big fall from grace for Margot Robbie's character.
Right. There's this little scene, I think, that happens with Jack that he thinks, as he's discovering that he's not head honcho, big Hollywood star anymore, where he thinks he's doing like a fluff piece, I guess, for his next new movie. You can hear Eloise's voice doing the interview, but for now, you just think you're doing a fluff piece.
It's very Jean-Luc Godard. He's wearing the glasses and smoking a cigarette, and there's like, what you call it? Not match cuts. What you call them?
Jump cuts.
Jump cuts in between questions.
Yeah.
But then meanwhile, I think Manny's shooting something with Sydney.
Yeah, so Manny's shooting a new movie with Sydney. It's this big jazz production. Manny's in the center, spotlight on him, playing the trumpet.
When all of a sudden a producer comes up to Manny and is like, under this spotlight, Sydney looks too white. And the people, essentially the lowest common denominator, not gonna like that.
Yeah.
And then...
because it looks like a mixed-race movie.
Right. And they can't have that in the late 20s, right?
Yeah.
So everybody who knows how Hollywood works goes... Oh no. Oh no. They're not gonna go there, are they?
Yes. So Manny, even though he himself is Latin American, or Latin immigrant technically,
You'd think would empathize with the Browns, basically.
yes. He gets a little can of like charcoal makeup and gives it to Sydney and is like, under this light next to the other black people, your skin's too light, so we need you to fix that.
And Sydney's just disgusted
Yes.
by the request, and is just like asking him like, what? What? But like, Manny goes like, please, for me, come on, please.
Yes.
And then Sydney starts putting it on.
Yeah, well, you don't see him, but like the next time, this cuts in between.
Well, he starts touching.
He considers it. Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. Yes.
It cuts between Jack calling Manny, because Manny's like head honcho now essentially, and Jack's like, why am I being ignored? What's going on here? Eventually Jack decides he's gonna go into the office to try to like talk to Manny or whoever's in charge in person to be like, why are you dodging my calls? So it cuts back to Sydney. He has on blackface, essentially. A black person wearing blackface. He's playing the trumpet, but with just such a look of like, I've lost my dignity.
Just welling up in tears.
Yeah.
A very aggressive trumpet solo, like he's taking out his anger or something. But like it's a gut-wrenching scene because it's just like he is just, his dignity just went out the window for Hollywood.
Yes, because you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do, yeah.
The scene, I guess, culminates into Sydney gives the security guard his pass to leave, and then but the guy's like, wait, if you give it to me, you can't come back in. He's like, don't worry, I'm not coming back. So after that scene, essentially that role, Sydney's basically like, I'm not doing this anymore for Hollywood.
I quit.
Yeah. And then Jack arrives to the studio after everyone has already left. He's like confused. No one like wants to like meet with him. But then he finds in like he breaks into essentially the producer's office. Bunch of movies where he is not the star. He is not in the posters. He's realized all the roles that he wanted are being given to someone else. But he finds this little magazine, and on the magazine, it's a hit piece on him that he was doing with Eloise, not a fluff piece. And it's basically saying his career's over. he's a wash-up actor now. So I love these scenes because it's so real. It says so much about Hollywood in these scenes. Sydney is being basically a stand-in for Sidney Poitier. If I've watched some of those featurettes on Criterion about Sidney Poitier and about how like he, as one of the first black people who like led the way for everyone else, could not win. He was either like too white in his acting, or the white people didn't like him, or whatever. So like no matter what he did, no matter how much, like the fact that like without him Hollywood would not have the kind of movies we have today. I feel like that scene, just with like literally a black person putting on blackface because no matter what you do, it's not enough. I was just like, this is Hollywood. To pretend like this is not and that has never been is ridiculous.
Yeah, is Chazelle lying here?
No.
Yeah, this is how it is.
You're supposed to feel really bad. But like it's real, it's reality, it is what it is. And also to see like Jack really like his downfall of like this egomaniac actor to like you're a wash up, and to see him have to like cope with that. Yeah,
Jack has this confrontation with Eloise in her office, and he's like, whoa, hey man,
like what is this?
What is this?
Yeah.
We agreed that this would be a fluff piece to invigorate my career. And then Eloise goes into this diatribe of like, this is just how it is. You're done. Look at how old you are, And he has this freak out, very, very reminiscent of the Birdman versus the Critic freak out of like, you have no idea what it means to be an artist. You have no idea what it means to create anything. And then Eloise has this kind of like,
yeah, he calls her a cockroach.
He calls her a cockroach. But Eloise goes on this amazing diatribe about like, well, yeah, us cockroaches will make it through the decades. We survive because we talk about people like you. It's people like you who reach for the stars that burn out really fast. And then goes through another diatribe about how like you want to live, but like it doesn't matter if you're gone and you die, you will live forever in cellophane, basically.
People who, long after you've died, people will watch your movies and feel something and know who you are and all that stuff. And I can't help, like, this scene is good. I like that scene, but like in Whiplash, where that movie can be viewed in two very different lenses depending on where you are in life. This scene also can be viewed in two very different lenses depending on where you are in life.
Explain.
In this scene, I think you're supposed to kind of empathize with Brad Pitt's character. And that's it for him. But for Eloise's character, I don't think you're supposed to think that what she's saying is true.
Right. It's like this shallow pipe dream and ambition that Hollywood people have.
Yeah.
But it's not real. It's like, so what if you live forever in a movie? No one's going to watch your fucking movie.
Yeah, exactly. The consolation prize that she has at the end, where she's like, well, it's okay that like you're a wash up and you'll never be anything anymore. You just have to accept it, because you have legacy. Like the whole speech is about legacy, and as you get older, and as you, especially people who've worked in it too, the idea of legacy is like so ridiculous. It's so like, for one, that's not a choice, and for two, everyone dies. Like everyone dies,
and
no
it's
matter
forgotten.
what. Like yeah, like if you think you will be a star forever, and that's just silly. But like the one thing I think was truly honest about her speech was the idea of survival. Hollywood is a game of survival. Whether you are an actor or whatever, it's not really about legacy at the end of the day. It's about like, can you get that next job? Can you stay hired? Because at the end of the day, people will forget who you are. People won't watch your movies. Whatever. Are you gonna be the guy that like lets your ego get really, really big, or are you gonna survive and like do whatever it takes to survive, even be a gossip columnist or whatever? You call us a cockroach. Well, cockroaches,
they live on,
they
man.
survive house fires, whatever she says.
And nuclear
bombs.
Yeah.
So that's basically end of Act 2. Everyone basically has their downfall. Earlier on, Nellie, as she was trying to change her image, there's this whole ridiculous scene with like Margot Robbie and a snake that doesn't really do much of anything. But one of the biggest parts of that scene is basically Margot Robbie and Faye, the Asian actress from before, who swings both ways. They basically get into a relationship. But then there's a following scene where Manny has to tell Faye that, like, you know, you've gone out of fashion, and the sexuality thing was fun in the early 20s, but not a problem now. And I was just like, isn't Hollywood. This exactly like today, but in reverse?
Hollywood.
Like, whatever for appearances, right? Like, back in the day, it's like ooh, like oriental, exotic person who swings both ways. That's like so like intriguing. But now when it's out of fashion, bye-bye. I was just kind of like, yeah, like that's exactly what the same thing, what's happening now.
With woke stuff.
And who knows when they're just gonna throw you to the side.
Yeah.
And I just thought, like, yeah, that's exactly. They'll use your race, they'll use your sexuality when it benefits you, they'll use your...
But when it doesn't, they gotta throw you in the trash.
Whether you are Jack Conrad and Nellie, or if you're Sydney and Faye, like, it doesn't matter. They treat you all kind of equally shitty. By the time Eloise and Brad Pitt have, basically everyone's kind of sort of, except for Manny, is having their downfall. Sydney quit. Everyone is not doing so hot. So what did you think of Act 2?
I thought Act 2 was great in the kind of... You're making me cringe on purpose because of how #real everything is. Yeah. So from the soundstage part to the diatribe with Brad Pitt and Eloise, it's just so painful because it's true. And it doesn't make you feel good, but it does make you go, well, that's life for you, right? But I think my favorite scene in the movie is the Sydney scene, because it's so sad. It's so gut-wrenching. It's so just like, but like anybody, I'm sure anybody who's worked in a lot of different industries know what it's like to compromise themselves, to do something that they're not proud of for the paycheck. Mm-hmm. But like, you know, with Sydney, it's taken to the nth degree, which is really, really heartbreaking to watch. So that was just from the setup of like somebody asks Manny, like, you know, he looks too white. And then you go like, oh no. And then you see the makeup, and then you go, oh no. And then you see Sydney's tears, and you go, fuck. It's a great scene, man. Yeah. It's a great scene.
Though I really enjoyed Act 2. Outside of occasionally, there were some scenes that I felt were not exactly necessary.
Give an example.
So one example is in the history timeline here. Manny and Nellie meet randomly somewhere in LA where Nellie is recognized in the street, and then Manny has to like go and like, hey, like protect her basically, and then be like, I haven't seen you forever. And they kind of meet again before Manny, he's still a PA for Jack technically, and they catch up, and Nellie's like this it girl essentially. Everyone loves her, and Manny's just like still just like, I love you. Nellie basically brings Manny with her out to an insane asylum to see her mom. And it kind of like similar to the scene where like Margot Robbie gets her big break for the first time, she kind of like yells at the sky that like, I showed you, I said, like, you told me I was ugly, I was untalented, whatever, I was the ugliest one of the bunch or something like that, but like, look at me now, I'm a star. This is kind of similar in that like Margot Robbie is visiting her sick mother, and in a interesting way kind of sort of flaunting her stardom.
I won't end up like her.
Yeah, it's not overt, like it's not mean, but she did say, it just seems like she's like, I don't want to be like her, I'm not going to end up like her, I'm a star, that kind of attitude. And it's real, and it's character development, but I'm not entirely sure necessary for the overall movie. It just drags it on. So around Act 2 I start getting bored. I start getting a little like, hurry it up along, like there's like 5 different storylines I need to focus on, and like to have a long drawn out scene just to explain the Hollywood stereotype of like, I was from a small town or a bad family background and now I've made it. Like I get it.
We also get it from the scenes of, she mentions a lot of this stuff offhandedly in the beginning of the movie, but like her living situation.
Right.
There's heroin and her apartment's dilapidated and there's crap everywhere. It's just not so good, but then she walks out and she looks like a star for some strange reason.
So it's a lot of scenes like that, or like there's yet another, like the snake scene. It comes from like this separate, I think, third party scene in the movie, and we had a really hard time figuring out where this party was in the timeline, because there's so many parties, and this party in particular didn't do anything other than like people are starting to like talk shit about Nellie behind her back, that she's a bad actor, she can't really deal with the sound stuff, and she has to like prove her ego, and like it's like a cry for attention. It's basically to show that as actors and actresses become washed out and irrelevant, there's this like cry for attention typically that they do, where they'll do something crazy, so like fight a snake,
like me, please.
Yes, like pay attention to me.
Right.
I have this big ego, like I'm powerful, that kind of thing. But I was like, could have done without that. Like, could have done it in a more concise way. It was really long. I don't, yeah. So Act 2, not quite as tight and good as Act 1. So, but it was fine. I liked it.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It's fun watching everyone's downfall, because they were really riding the high from the first act.
Yeah, because like as the first act is concluding, there's only one way it can go from here.
It's straight down the toilet, man. And talking about straight down the toilet, let's talk about Act 3.
So Act 3, you get a few scenes where you see Brad Pitt's character kind of accept his washed upness. He has a conversation with Faye. Faye's dealing with her washed upness essentially by going to Europe, because now she's in vogue there.
Of course, in Europe.
Yeah. And then Jack, he has kind of a meltdown when he hears that his friend George, that the movie he's been trying to like keep him from killing himself because of some kind of fling that this man gets into, and he gets his heart broken. Every party he goes to, he's trying to like drown his sorrows or something. You find out that was the first producer that believed in him and believed in Jack, and it's like really like he's at the end of his career now. A friend has died because he committed suicide, and Jack is now like faced with his own like impending death, in a way, like death of career.
He has this whole diatribe to his wife, who is a East Coaster Broadway person who sticks her nose up at filmmaking. And Brad Pitt goes through this entire thing of like, I will, my medium's so much more important, everything's blah, 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 blah. But then all it is ego.
Yes, it's him trying to like
rationalize.
Yeah, like our stuff means something. We make them feel, and everyone watches me.
Under here is like, my career meant something.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
I meant something.
I meant something, right?
So he like tries to cope. He gets this phone call that is very reminiscent of the phone call he gave someone else when he was waiting in his trailer before he drunkenly perfectly acts out a scene. He has to do someone a favor. Do it really dirt cheap and dirt poor, and it's gonna be a mediocre butt movie. But he knows that's what it is, and he's like, just don't lie to me. Just tell it to me straight. How about that? But like, no matter how much he tries to cope, he goes to see this movie that he produced, I think,
He's in it too.
Yeah, he produced and acted in. He thinks it was going to be great. He thinks it's like a masterpiece. But then he goes secretly to the theater to watch like the audience reaction, and the audience are like kind of laughing at him because his movies are like passe now. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like cheesy to the younger audience. Time. Yeah. So he's just like dealing with being kind of a clown, but he can't. So eventually he offs himself in his hotel room.
Beautifully shot. Like we're going into the like hotel hallway, and the door opens slightly ajar, and we go through it almost like in The Shining. And then in an offing scene that very reminiscent of William H. Macy and Boogie Nights. It's just so beautiful. I just can't with the blood on the white tile.
Yes,
so epic.
I would say it's a combination of like Shining, Psycho, and yes, Boogie Nights, because the bathroom is so clean and white. It's reminiscent of how clean and white the bathtub was in Psycho, and then the red of the blood splashing, and it's nicely done. And then the next scene, I think, is Nellie like going to Manny when Manny comes home from work or something, and then Nellie's in trouble. She basically has lost control of her image. She has stopped trying. She has this crazy gambling debt that she's in real big trouble with, and Manny, out of love for her, you're not entirely sure if it's love for her yet,
or if it's you're an investment and you're becoming a liability essentially. Mm-hmm.
He decides, don't worry, we'll take care of it. They have this coke-fueled like brainstorming session trying to figure out how to fix this, and then he gets a call from a friend, basically.
I call him the Hollywood chemist.
Yes.
He conveniently shows up to give everybody drugs.
Yes.
Yeah, like Margot Robbie owes a shit ton of money to the mob, and the chemist is like, hey, I found $80,000.
Yes. So Manny's like, what? How? He's like, never mind that. So okay, fine. Like, let's meet at like the meeting place where we're supposed to give them the money. So they show up basically to the exact same mansion as the first party of the movie, the first Babylon party, essentially. And they have this hilarious joke as they're like parking the car and trying to like get ready, get the nerves up to meet this mafioso, essentially. And I think you should say it, the joke.
Oh, the joke is like, Manny's really nervous, right, because of the mafioso stuff, and the chemist is like, hey, don't worry, there's really no difference between the mob and Hollywood.
Yes.
So go with what you know.
And I was like, oh, especially since we've been binging Sopranos lately, I was like, how accurate. Hollywood's one big family. The mob is one big family.
It's a Nepo baby party, baby.
They do distasteful things that you would never wish to know.
And everything's not for kindness, it's for reciprocity.
As long as you earn, nothing matters. Mm-hmm. Your value is how much you earn. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was hilarious because I was literally thinking the same exact thing. I'm like binging The Sopranos.
That David Chase is like, oh, this is secretly about like every industry from medicine to Hollywood,
yeah, exactly,
to the mob. Yeah.
So they go into the mansion and they meet the mafioso, which happens to be Tobey Maguire. His name is actually James McKay, but it's played by Tobey Maguire.
His eyes are fucked up from drugs, man. And he acts like some David Lynch character. Just He's very weird. Yeah. Makes your skin crawl, you know?
Very strange.
Yeah.
There's like some gags there where he finds out they're movie producers essentially, and then he starts pitching to them his ideas.
Moleskin of movie ideas, and he like goes through some of them and he's like, what do you think about this idea? And then, you know, as Hollywood people do, they have to go, yeah, I could see that. That is a really good idea for a movie. Tell Barbara about that idea. Oh, such a good idea.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen people buy hook, line, and sinker lies because some Hollywood douchebag couldn't just be honest with someone and go like, it fucking sucks, I would never hire you, or like, it needs to be worked on. But like, people like, which I understand, like, Hollywood people can be a little afraid of confrontation sometimes too, but then they'll lie to you and be like, oh yeah, it's great, yeah, you'll totally be great for Invincible, but then like, no, they're lying to you. But like, they don't, it's easier to lie to you than it is
to tell you the truth.
Yes. And also, this is a mobster, so they're like, take the money, please, and let me go. As Tobey Maguire is like, I think he's going to get the moleskin. Manny realizes that the money is fake prop money from like some heist movie they did or something. And then he's like, oh my God. No.
And after watching The Sopranos, I'm like, oh no, this is bad. And Manny, he flips the fuck out at the chemist. And the chemist's like, relax, he's not gonna know.
Yeah.
Shoo.
But then
Tobey Maguire enters and he's like, I got something to show you guys. Will you guys come with me? And you can't say no to the boss. Right?
Yes.
So Tobey Maguire essentially takes them to what he calls the butthole of Los Angeles,
which is the 5 freeway with the bridge and everything. And I was like, I swear we've called it that on one of the podcasts. I swear, like, it's an LA thing. We call it the butthole of LA. I thought that was a funny joke, specifically for LA people. Not even for people who work in Hollywood, literally just for LA people. It doesn't make sense. When you go in there, it's just a freeway. But like, when you go in there, it becomes a hellish underworld scene, very reminiscent of the first party, when Manny goes to the first party. Except this time it's like the worst things you could imagine. It's just weird people in chains,
weird kinky stuff,
BDSM, just weird stuff.
It looks like a Nine Inch Nails music video, basically.
Yes.
There's a crocodile, and like, as they go deeper and deeper into the party, it gets more and more ridiculous.
Yeah, so the crocodile is supposed to kind of represent like the elephant from the first version of the party. And then Tobey Maguire is like, oh, you gotta see this guy. He's gonna be great for your next movie. He's such a crazy talent, all this stuff. So they go all the way down to the bottom of this underworld situation. And it's this like Andre the Giant, Elephant Man-esque person who's like eating rats, basically like a geek in a circus. Mm-hmm. And Tobey Maguire's like, he'll do anything for money. He'll be great for your next movie. So right in that moment, as they see this giant essentially, they find out Tobey Maguire, because of water or something, drips on the money. It's fake
from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And the ink from the money starts to bleed, and then it becomes very obvious to Toby that this money is fake.
Yeah, so Manny books it out of there, being chased by everyone, it seems, the mob. He hightails it out of the butthole of LA, and he takes Margot Robbie, and he basically goes like, we need to go. We need to like go on the lam. His idea is to like fucking
go to Mexico,
go to Mexico, like in what's that movie where the two girls go to Mexico but they never make it.
Oh, Thelma and Louise.
Yeah,
they try to Thelma and Louise.
They Thelma and Louise it. Except Margaret Nelly gets distracted by this like Spanish party where they're dancing and stuff, and it's reminiscent of like the good old days when she could just dance and party and have a grand old time. That's when Manny admits that he loves her and would do anything for her, and she basically admits like she's not long for this earth. She's accepted it. But regardless, he takes her to this very like Skid Row looking area of LA, very reminiscent of Chinatown. It's lit exactly the same way as that end scene in Chinatown. And then he basically is like, wait for me in the car. I need to go like figure some stuff out inside. So he goes inside. Nellie basically like looks over at the empty wherever Manny was and is not gonna wait, apparently. Just kind of like dances in the spotlight. There's like this spotlight coming down from like a street light.
Literal spotlight on the intersection of the street. And then she like kind of does her little jig and then exits the spotlight.
Yeah, she disappears into obscurity, literally and figuratively. Meanwhile, Manny is in some apartment trying to figure out something when like out of nowhere a very like Tarantino style like hit happens. Some guy comes in, bang bang bang, everyone dies. Manny's just trying, like the only one alive.
Oh please God, no, type of thing.
He's like peeing, blood everywhere.
And he's like, I'll do anything, please just spare me. And the assassin's like, well, just get out of the city, I don't want to see your face there. Yeah, never come back.
So Manny, he like runs outside, sees that Nellie is nowhere to be found, books it out of LA. And then we have basically a news clipping of basically what's happened to everyone. So Sydney is basically wash up Hollywood musician playing at a jazz bar. Nellie was found dead somewhere at the age of 30 something. Jack found dead. Manny disappears. Yeah, he's no longer Hollywood head honcho. Hollywood moves on. Then we cut to basically 1950s. So we are now in the Technicolor era.
Wow. Man, what a big jump. And we're essentially in front of Paramount Pictures where I grew up.
Yes, we literally filmed there.
How close do I live to Paramount Pictures?
Like, you can walk there. It's like a few blocks away.
Yeah. So Manny, much, much older, he's a father now, comes to Kinoscope, and he's like, man, that's where I used to work, family. And then meets a security guard, and they're like shooting the shit and talking about, hey, you like it here? Is it good? And he goes like, oh yeah, I used to work in a place like this. I used to work here actually. And they reminisce, but you could tell Manny has this like bittersweet thing with Hollywood.
Right. And Manny basically now, he lives in the East Coast in New York. He is a audio tech repair man, essentially. Humble life with a humble wife and a little daughter. Since they're technically, I guess, visiting on vacation, he's just showing them around, at least like the front entrance of Paramount. He sends them off because they want to like go eat ice cream or something. And then Manny, being a little nostalgic, just sticks around, has that conversation with the security guard, and then like just kind of walks around that street of LA where I swear we walked down before. And then he passes...
with the Astro Burger, but not Astro Burger, and the big billboards at Paramount. That street, I think, Melrose, I think. Yeah, Melrose.
He passes by a little theater, so for nostalgia's sake, he goes in, and they're playing Singing in the Rain, and also this other movie.
It's like a strange montage of movies for some reason.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But
it will.
Yes. So he's sitting there, and they're playing these movies, and you're realizing, we're in the era of Technicolor, these sound picture movies with color now, and we're in this era of 50s musicals, essentially. Judy Garland, all that stuff. And he basically sees a Hollywood movie, a shallow version of his life, essentially. The drama of his life. The drama of Nellie, the drama of Jack. And it's all in this, like, this Technicolor shallow movie. And he really, like, he starts getting flashbacks. Basically, a shallow scene in the movie in this really portrayed in this comical shallow way, and then he gets a flashback of the same scene that happened in this Babylon movie of like, this is what actually happened, this was my life, this was so dramatic, this meant so much to me, and now it's being made into this shallow farce of a movie.
Kind of makes his whole life feel like a farce.
Yes.
In Hollywood.
So he starts crying, and like he puts his head in his hands. And he like his head is down, and it's just like this pain of like, this is so long ago. I have a whole life now, a wife, a kids, a different career, and I've put all this behind me, but there's so much pain there. I've quit the industry, but like now it's just, what was this? Was this all just a fucking joke? And then the camera does this amazing pan down as he's putting his head in his hands to the young audience watching the movie. Below him,
the new generation of Manny's and Margot Robbie's,
essentially, yeah, and they're watching starry-eyed at the big screen, enjoying the movie for what it is, and it's just this really like, so the cycle continues.
Yes.
But then it cuts to a 2001 Space Odyssey-esque, it starts from the beginning of the invention of motion picture, from like the horse frame, like walk cycle essentially, like when the first time people discovered how
to make pictures move.
Yeah, how pictures even work. And it takes you through the history of film, from literally...
The Train.
Yeah.
Like all of the early movies, Persona, like you go through film history in this amazing Kubrick-esque kind of montage through Hollywood's time and space.
Yes.
Basically.
Intercut with flashes of scenes from Babylon the movie, meaning like memories from Manny's life, and also intercut with development fluid, as you put film into the fluid, chemicals, basically like 2001, like the primordial ooze of humanity. It's the primordial ooze of cinema. All of it culminating all the way to like present day, like Avatar. There are like scenes from like clips of Avatar in this 2001-esque montage scene. Cut back to eventually, once we reach present day, to Manny's face as he's watching this Technicolor movie, and his like just streaming with tears. He slowly smiles because it basically means like, even though it's painful, even though it's everything you think it is, it's a fucking joke, it's awful, it's whatever, for some reason it's bigger than us. For some reason, no matter how much we hate it, we also love it because of the magic of movies. And that's how it ends.
Yep.
And that is Babylon.
We did it from start to finish.
So what did you think of Act 3?
I did not like the Tobey Maguire stuff at all, because I got the point of the party from the first party, that these aren't good people. These people are hedonistic, awful monsters who are having a good time, and this is what it looks like. It's almost like he wanted to make extra sure that like, these people are monsters. These people are monsters. Like, I get it. You proved your point already. And like, I really think like if you took that scene out, it'd be pretty inconsequential. It's fine. Because like the tension here is like, Margot Robbie fucked up and we have to get out of Los Angeles somehow. So because he botched the money thing with the mob, it's almost like they're back to the square one after that scene anyway. Mm-hmm. Also the build up to Jack offing himself, a little over descriptive. We get like after that scene with him and the critic, it's like we understand where Jack's position is after, and he doesn't really move anywhere until he offs himself. So like the only natural conclusion is the conclusion he did to himself, which I wish we got there a little bit faster. Mm-hmm. So the third act is a little bloated. And I just wanted to get to that epilogue as soon as possible. Yeah,
I would say the epilogue is my favorite part of the movie, where you get to see like where Manny ended up. The Tobey Maguire stuff, I understand the point of it. But again, like you said, as people who've worked in it, we understand the debauchery already in the first party at the beginning of the movie, so it felt a little redundant for me. It's kind of a nightmarish underworld scene. It's supposed to be a little bit metaphorical, I guess, and dreamlike. But the movie doesn't set up that aspect of dreaminess in the movie. It's asking the viewers from the beginning to take it seriously, as if this is reality. So I was like, this is out of place, and it comes out of nowhere. It feels, the dreaminess of it comes out of nowhere. And to be clear, what the scene is trying to say, because each and every one of the characters had the closing of their arc at this point, except for Manny. Manny is basically the story of a young executive producer. Like, you start as a grunt, you become big head honcho, executive producer, whatever. Where does that arc end? And for anyone who is trying to critique Hollywood, it doesn't end well, because we all know how shitty, potentially, like the Weinsteins, for example, can be. And what they're basically showing here is that the worst things you can possibly imagine are part of Hollywood. Like, it's hard to believe, but it is. And Manny was essentially offered it. Manny was privy to it. Manny saw it. But he rejected it at the end of the day and had to get out of... He basically went from big Hollywood executive producer to a nobody. Someone who has to work as a repair tech, audio tech guy. Which, very realistic, by the way, especially being here in Prescott. Lots of people in Hollywood end up just living in very humble lives because they did not want to be a part of it anymore. I just thought, like, I guess for me it was obvious, and then if I were to watch it as someone who, like, didn't work in Hollywood, it's confusing. It comes out of nowhere. It's redundant. It doesn't do much. It doesn't. People aren't going to understand that metaphor, that correlation. It's not handled well, clarity-wise, I would say. So it just felt like, as I was watching it, I was like, you lost me now. What is happening?
Yeah. It goes off the rails, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to suspend my disbelief at that point.
But I loved, especially for personal reasons, I love the epilogue, because I always felt, ever since I quit, that no one truly understands where I'm coming from. Now, there's no movie, there's no nothing. There's no amount of me explaining it on a podcast. For people to understand this weird, painful relationship that I have with Hollywood. It's this thing that I adore because I love movies, but I also hate because I know the reality of working in it. And I just really felt like I was Manny in that scene. Like, I was just like, it hurts. It hurts really, really, really bad to, like, have all these memories, but, like, it's painful. But then to be like, it's confusing because I love it too. So it's, I felt very like, this is a very difficult theme to explain in a movie. A lot of the critique is easier, like the egotistical actor who has to fade into obscurity, the troubled actress who also has to fade into obscurity, the hard, grueling path it is to go from PA all to just through sheer luck climb all the way to executive producer, and then from there you reach the top and then you see all this grossness. Like, what are you supposed to do?
And you either become part of it or you leave.
Yeah. So, like, I appreciate the third act. I don't think it was done well, though.
No, but
until the end.
The epilogue's pretty great because it's, I think, out of all the moments moments in the movie, it's the most personal. I'd say, from Chazelle, about his very, very complicated feelings about cinema, but also being a part of the system, and like Manny crying, and then seeing all the new Mannys get it swept up, just like how Manny was in the beginning of the movie when he was doing coke with Margot Robbie. The circle will be unbroken.
Yes.
It just keeps going and going, and it's so I don't know, maybe some people will find the 2001 sequence pretentious, but it's so I'd say the montage has more storytelling power and means more than the actual montage from 2001.
Yes.
It's sort of like Manny's very complicated feelings about how trivialized his life has become, but then like through the decades, it doesn't even really matter what he's done because it's cinema.
Yeah.
And we love this thing even though we know the dirt behind it.
Yeah.
I thought that was great, man. That was really cool. That was really well done.
I at first I didn't like the 2001 thing because at first I thought it was pretentious. Well, first I actually didn't know what was happening, and then I realized it was an ode to 2001. And then I was like, I thought it was just like a lot of other people do, copy Kubrick just for the hell of it.
Aesthetics, yeah.
And then I realized the point of it when you cut back to Manny. And I didn't really like the flashbacks either until I realized, like, oh, the flashbacks aren't flashbacks. It's putting into context Manny's memories in the context of
cinema.
Yeah, like his life in the context of all of cinema. And the idea, like, I don't even know if, like, put into words what the power of this scene was. Because to say, like, oh, it shows you the history of cinema through 2001.
It's almost like our collective human consciousness and how we progress this strange little art form we've made.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like you said, like that's as best as I could describe it. But it's this feeling of like, you're right, it's bigger than us. Mm-hmm. And like, man, like this thing that like Manny was a part of.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't a part of it, there wouldn't be a progression.
Yeah.
Which is like what you said about Poitiers.
Yeah. This scene is better experienced rather than explained. Like, like no matter how much we try to explain it, it's never going to do that scene justice in terms of the meaning of it, I guess.
That's the power of cinema.
Yeah, exactly. So overall, I like the movie, but it is bloated and too ambitious sometimes.
And a little too angsty sometimes.
Sometimes, but it's a really surprising effort from Chazelle. Because especially when you know he made La La Land and you go like, this is the same guy.
What did you do to this poor man?
So what I wanted to say about this movie at the end of the day is that this is what I would consider a post-woke movie. It's making a lot of criticisms about Hollywood and about wokeness and about the way us millennials see the industry,
the hypocrisy,
the hypocrisy of the world, economy, jobs,
the industry.
And there's been this trend here that I've noticed with a lot of indie movies this year.
Under the Silver Lake, what is it? Emily the Criminal. They all have this like strange like
funny games.
Funny games?
Not funny games. Funny pages.
Funny pages, yeah. Right. This whole irreverence towards the industry, where it's in like the Gen Xers, the Tarantino generation, worshipped at the feet and fellatied the Weinsteins of the world,
exactly,
basically.
Yeah. And I feel indie movies do this all the time, where like you see what they're doing, and Hollywood kind of follows suit like years down the line because they want to see it. This messaging really successful first in the indie space before they adopt it. But I've noticed like whether it's successful or not, like the difference between Emily the Criminal, in my opinion, very successful in conveying the exact same message, and Babylon. There's this thing here. All of us millennials are like done. We're so fed up with being lied to about everything.
Yeah, I think the Tarantinos are going to die with his generation. We're not about that, it seems. We're not about worshiping the feet.
We're not biting the hand that feeds.
Yeah. Sweet. That's cool. We found our voice as a generation, man.
We're just angsty.
Angsty.
I feel like Chazelle has really matured. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited to see.
I'm really excited his future efforts, man.
Yeah.
I really wish, like... I know this is a hard sell for everyone. Like, I know you don't want to watch another Fabelmans, another like Hollywood blowhard movie, but like my only pitch to you normies is like, if you've ever wanted to see true reportage, he's not even lying, like just true to life, what Hollywood people are, like you're a motherfucker at a zoo, and these are the people behind the bars, this is the movie for you. Like, if you really want to understand these people and how they really haven't changed throughout the generations, this is the movie you want to see.
And so I have two theories about why I think. So I briefly looked at the Rotten Tomato score, and I get force feed certain things on Twitter. I don't know why, but I saw that it got a C+ cinema score, this movie. But like on Rotten Tomatoes, oh my god, it was really bad. It was like a 50-something%, something like that. And I accidentally saw that right before I went to see the movie. I was like, god damn it, I didn't want to see anything, but thanks. But now that I feel, like I said, it's like, for me, a B- movie, there's a conspiracy theory I have here about why. Because I've always said, I don't think a movie like this could have been made. Because what executive producer in their right mind
would greenlight this thing, man? It makes fun of them.
Yes, exactly. And it's too honest about them. And the fact that it exists reminds me a little bit of Citizen Kane. And I know this is like high praise or whatever, but like, if you know anything about Citizen Kane, if you've watched Mank, you would understand, I guess, a little bit. But like, that movie was really dangerous.
Very
the fact
dangerous.
that it came out.
That is a bite the hand that feeds movie.
Yeah, you couldn't like. They were making a critique on Hearst, like a giant media mogul that like controlled everything, could have like ended you in career and maybe in other ways. That movie was dangerous, and it is why it's so celebrated today, even though in my opinion a little boring, but it's, film history. I feel that way a little bit conspiratorial about this movie, the fact that it critiques the Hollywood system so harshly and so honestly. It feels like I wouldn't be surprised if Chazelle knew he would get the score he would get at least, because of what he was saying about you specifically, you Hollywood blowhards, you film critics, you executive, all you people. It's not kind. But that's like almost giving too much credit. That's giving too much credit to these reviewers and stuff like that.
Yeah, I want to believe in reality people just didn't get it or got it, so they want to bury this movie, basically.
At the end of the day, it could just be a little confusing, because the thing is, like, Network exists, and people love that movie.
It's a great satire.
Yeah.
What you call it? Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
Great satire.
And people who know what these movies are actually about, they know and they love it for... In a weird way, Hollywood kind of does like being critiqued if they're critiqued well.
But not on the nose like this.
Not literally. Like, it can't be literally about them.
And, like, how dare you desecrate our history, too, basically.
Yeah.
And then what better guy to desecrate the history than Chazelle, who was, like, kind of born and bred to be, like, this musician, music filmmaker person.
It's literally a Nepo baby criticizing all you Nepo babies.
It's epic. It's so epic. So I appreciate the gusto, I appreciate the balls, but I understand it's not for everyone, and I understand it's getting filleted right now. But, like, if you have the stomach or the patience for it, it's an educational time. It's
a challenging movie. And occasionally very, very entertaining, for me at least. If you like this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, jingle all our bells and buttons, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye!